Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on the Big Me My Man channel. In today's video, I'm going to teach you how to handle animation in Unity. If you followed my previous tutorials, you should have a very similar scene set up like this. You don't need to follow my previous tutorials to understand this one or understand any of the programming, but it would help a lot if you had a scene set up similar to mine. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to go underneath the rifle game object and you want to get all of the physical blocks or the mesh. You want to create a parent. And then underneath that parent, you want to go to the animation window. If you don't have it, click on window, go to animation, and then click on animation. From here, you want to click on a create. I'm going to call it rifle shoot. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a very basic shooting animation. For a shooting animation, I usually go 1 or 2 milliseconds in, and I usually pull the gun back a bit, rotate it upwards, rotate it to the side, and then rotate it like that. And then I copy the first keyframe, which is created when you create the second keyframe. I usually paste it about 5 milliseconds, and then I paste it again. I paste it again at like 6 milliseconds. And then for number 5, for 5 milliseconds, what we're going to do is move it forward a bit, move it down a bit, and then rotate it down just a tiny bit. This makes the animation look a bit more natural. And then what I'm going to do, just for preview sakes, I'm going to get the last keyframe, which is the same as the first keyframe. I'm going to paste it at about 20 seconds so we can preview the animation without it being looped. And then I'm going to click on play. And as you can see, that's our animation. I'm going to go to the 2 milliseconds. I'm going to move it up a bit, move it back more, then move it up a bit. And that is our shooting animation. Now, what it's going to look like in game is I'm going to delete the last keyframe, and then I'm going to click on play, and now when we hold down the button, it should look like that. The shooting button. It should look like that when we play the animation. So what we want to do now is we want to tell the game that we need to play the animation when we shoot. So I'm going to head over to the rifle script. You don't need a rifle script, but you can, I will show you what you need to do if you don't have a script ready for animation. So I'm going to open up the script in Visual Studio. And now, once I've opened up the script in Visual Studio, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new private animator. I'm going to call it anim. And then in the start function, which is called when the game is launched, I'm going to do anim is equal to get component, but in the children, and then of type animator. All this does is it searches for an animator component in the child game object. And now if we head back over to Unity, when you create an animation on an object, the animator game object, or component rather, is already assigned to it by default. Okay, what we want to do now is head back over to Visual Studio, and then we want to tell the game that we need to play the animation. As you can see, I already have an input function set up. So when the button fire 1 or mouse 1 or left control is pressed, it will call a function known as shoot. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create anim.play, and then in brackets and then in quotation marks, it has to be specifically capital Pacific, by the way, the name of the animation. So what this is going to do is that when it calls this function, when mouse 1 is pressed, it is going to play this animation. But by default, it's the only animation that the gun has. We need to create a resting state or an idle state where the gun has no motion or it has very limited motion. So I'm going to click Ctrl S to save that and head back over to Unity. And then once I'm back in Unity, I want to go over to the window, click on animation and go to animator. It will bring up a window very similar to this, and then we want to click on the parent game object, which has the animator component, and we will see this, an orange block that says rifle shoot. These are known as states, and states can have motion or animations. As you can see, the motion is of rifle shoot. Now what we want to do is we want to create an idle state, so when the player isn't shooting, it does nothing. What we're going to do is we're going to right click, click create new state, empty. We're going to set it as a default layer state, so it will be playing by default, and by default it has no motion, which is good for us because we don't want the rifle shoot animation to be playing constantly unless we press mouse 1. So I'm going to call this idle. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to create a transition, so when rifle shoot is finished it will go back to the idle. So I'm going to right click, click make transition, and then change it to idle. Now once rifle shoot is called, the animation, it will go back to the idle animation, which has a motion of none. Now, this is a very crucial step. We want to go over to the rifle shoot, and we want to disable the loop. This just makes it so that when we hold down the button, it doesn't continue to play when we let go. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to go to the game and check it out. Now, once we're in game, what we can see is when we hold down the button, the gun now fires to our fire rate. If I change the fire rate, the rifle, I'm going to change it to 0.2. The animation will now speed up. I'm going to change it to 0.1. Now, if you hadn't set up the rifle script, you won't have this, but it doesn't really matter because when you press down a certain button, it plays an animation. That is what I'm teaching you in this video. I'm going to change it to something like 0.05 or 0.01, and now it fires a lot quicker. So if I hold this, it deletes it immediately. Yep, and yep. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to do the same thing for the pistol. I'm going to speed up this footage though, so it's a lot easier for you. Now, once we've created the animation like I have here, we want to go back over to the animator. We want to do the exact same thing that we did before. And then, once we've set that up, we want to go over to the pistol script, or whatever handles our input. And then we want to do exactly what we did before, so public, or private rather, animator, anim. And then we're going to create a new function, void, start, which is called upon the starting of the game. Anim is equal to get component, but we're going to change it to get component in children, animator, so it will just search for the component in the child. Now, in the shoot function, which is called when we press down mouse 1, we're going to do anim, dot play, brackets, curly brackets, pistol, shoot. It has to be the identical name, same capitalization, otherwise Unity won't recognize it and you will get an error. We're going to head back over to Unity. Then we're going to do what we did before by changing the pistol shoot to off on loop. Then we're going to try it out in game. Now, as you can see, we're in game. I can shoot with mouse 1. If I hold it down, the animation doesn't loop. If I switch to the rifle and I hold it down, as you can see, we are continuously shooting at a fixed rate. And there we go. You can obviously replace the no motion state with a animation, just assign it here, and you will have to loop an idle animation. So yeah, thank you all for watching and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.